Today's breaking headline is sending shockwaves through the entire Dinar community, and if you are holding even a single note, you cannot afford to miss what is happening right now. For the first time in years, a high-level confirmation has arrived from inside Iraq stating that the central bank has officially reached full operational readiness for a potential IQD revaluation. This is not the usual speculation, not the usual rumors, and not the recycled talk seen over the last decade. This is being described as a structured readiness phase, complete, tested, and standing by for activation whenever leadership gives the green signal. And as of today, 2025, analysts and currency watchers are calling this the most significant signal ever released. Whether you have been holding Dinar for 10 months or 10 years, this update could reshape the entire direction of your financial expectations. The question everyone is asking now is simple: what does full readiness of the CBI actually mean? And even more importantly, how close are we to the long-anticipated shift in the IQD's value? Stay with us until the end, because we're breaking down every new angle, every operational step, and every sign pointing to what may come next. To begin, let's carefully break down what this new confirmation actually represents, because many holders may misunderstand the gravity of the term. Full readiness. In a central banking environment, readiness doesn't just mean preparing documents or reviewing policies. It means the installation, synchronization, and testing of financial systems that can support rapid adjustments of the national currency without causing disruptions inside or outside the country. It includes strengthening liquidity reserves, validating international settlement connections, verifying note authentication procedures, updating compliance systems, and ensuring the transition can be executed in real time across both domestic and global banking networks. This kind of readiness requires months, sometimes years, of behind-the-scenes work, and it is never completed unless a significant move is on the horizon. The confirmation that these preparations are fully complete suggests that the CBI has crossed one of the final major thresholds that typically precede a new policy rollout. For Dinar holders, this changes the outlook dramatically. Instead of wondering whether Iraq is still in early stages, the focus now shifts to timing, coordination, and what the next announcement could reveal. This is why so many investors are paying close attention today. One of the most important parts of this update is the statement that internal protocols are now configured to support large-scale note verification and exchange activities. What this means in practical terms is that the CBI has run the necessary simulations to confirm that banks can process high volumes of dinar, authenticate serial numbers, detect counterfeits, and maintain accurate reporting throughout the entire process. These systems must operate with absolute precision because a revaluation event, especially one involving millions of holders worldwide, creates massive transactional pressure on the banking sector. For years, many critics argued that Iraq lacked the infrastructure to handle such operations. That argument is no longer relevant. With full readiness now declared, the central bank has effectively signaled that technological and operational barriers have been removed. This is not something done casually, and it is not something done just in case. Central banks do not prepare comprehensive revaluation protocols unless a major shift is either planned or already scheduled internally. For holders, this is the clearest signal in a decade that something meaningful is taking place behind closed doors. Now let's talk about the man behind this major announcement, Sudani. Although we will not mention any external sources, what matters is that he has become a widely referenced figure within the financial community due to his connections with ongoing central bank developments. His recent confirmation has sparked massive interest because he has consistently provided accurate insights regarding policy adjustments and banking reforms throughout the past several years. When someone with this level of insight publicly states that the CBI is fully prepared for a revaluation, people listen. But beyond his statement, it is the language used that has everyone's attention. Words like complete, ready, and prepared for activation are not vague political terms. They are operational terms typically used inside banking environments when a plan has moved from developmental stages into execution readiness. That distinction is extremely important. This isn't about predicting a date or promising when a rate change will happen. It is about acknowledging that the largest and most difficult internal steps required for such an event are now behind us. The implication is clear: the window of opportunity is no longer theoretical. It is approaching. For Dinar holders wondering how to interpret this readiness confirmation, the first and most important thing to understand is that banks do not restructure their internal systems simply to create hope or speculation in the currency market. They don't allocate resources, retrain staff, or update international banking links unless these actions align with a strategy that has already been approved at a high level. In other words, central banks prepare because they expect to act. That principle applies universally. When a central bank says its systems are ready for a revaluation, it means it is waiting for the appropriate conditions, economic, political, or regulatory, to align with activation. This readiness does not guarantee immediate execution, but it does eliminate many of the obstacles that once slowed progress. It transforms, someday, into time once conditions align. For long-time followers of the Iraqi Dinar, this is the milestone they've been waiting for. Confirmation that the mechanical, technological, and operational gears of the system are now fully in place. This shifts the conversation away from possibility and toward preparedness. Let's examine why this readiness update from the CBI is significantly more important than previous statements heard over the years. Earlier announcements focused mostly on banking reforms or currency stabilization. While those were positive steps, none of them indicated that the bank was fully prepared for a potential revaluation event. Today's confirmation is different because it refers specifically to institutional capability, not general improvements. For example, liquidity pools have been strengthened to support exchange demands. International coordination lines are synchronized, meaning global banks can process IQD transactions smoothly. Compliance frameworks have been upgraded to match international standards, reducing risk of fraud or error during exchanges. Additionally, internal audit systems have been adjusted to support large-scale verification processes that accompany a rate shift. These details matter because they demonstrate execution-level readiness, not theoretical discussions. This is the type of groundwork completed only when a major currency event is genuinely being considered. For holders, this is exactly the kind of update that shifts expectation from waiting to preparing. Another key part of this development is the implication it carries for international markets. A revaluation of the Iraqi dinar is not just a national decision. It reverberates globally. When a central bank prepares for such a move, financial institutions around the world take notice. The reason is simple: any shift in the value of a widely held currency affects foreign exchange markets, investment flows, banking liquidity, and commodity pricing. Iraq is one of the world's major oil producers, which means its currency value carries influence far beyond its geographic borders. When readiness is confirmed, it signals to the global financial community that Iraq is positioning itself for reintegration into higher-value economic systems. That potential increases international demand for the currency, strengthens market speculation, and prompts global banks to begin reviewing their own internal procedures for handling IQD exchanges. In other words, what happens in Iraq does not stay in Iraq. A revaluation would create ripple effects across multiple sectors, and that is why today's update is capturing so much international attention. A major question many holders ask is, what does full readiness actually look like behind the scenes inside the banking system? While most details are not public, we do know that the process involves several major components. First, banks must confirm authentication systems for all denominations and series. This includes scanning equipment calibrated to detect counterfeits, damaged notes, or mismatched serial numbers. Second, digital banking platforms must be updated to reflect new exchange values instantly when a rate change is activated. Third, liquidity reserves must be positioned to support cash outs at the new value without destabilizing the banking sector. Fourth, compliance procedures must be validated for both domestic and international processing. And finally, every part of the system must undergo a stress test to ensure smooth operation during high-volume activity. Sudani's confirmation that all these systems are ready is a milestone that typically appears only when a central bank is preparing for a significant shift. This is why so many watchers consider this announcement one of the biggest updates of the decade. Now let's talk about the most important factor for holders. What should you actually do with this information? Well, no one can tell you what decisions to make financially. What you can do is prepare yourself so that you are not scrambling when the activation window finally arrives. Preparation starts with organizing your notes. Ensure your dinar is stored safely, kept clean, and arranged by denomination. Make sure serial numbers are visible and intact. Damaged notes can slow down verification, and in some cases may even be rejected. Next, ensure your personal documentation is in order. Banks will require clear identification and, in certain cases, verification of how you acquired your notes. Having everything ready ahead of time puts you in a much stronger position. You should also monitor communication from your local banks to identify which branches plan to handle IQD exchanges. Not all banks participate, so staying informed reduces confusion later. Finally, remain patient and avoid making decisions based on emotion. Preparedness, not panic, is the path forward. It's also important to consider how a phased exchange strategy can benefit holders. Even though many people dream of a single, large cash-out event that is not always the most effective or practical approach, banks often prefer phased processing to maintain smooth liquidity flow and compliance management. This means that exchanging smaller portions of your notes over several stages can help reduce delays, ensure accuracy during verification, and give you time to plan financially after each step. A phased approach also provides flexibility in case new guidelines or instructions appear after the revaluation begins. For example, a bank might initially limit daily cash outs or require scheduled appointments. Being mentally prepared for a step-by-step process prevents disappointment and reduces stress. Many experienced currency holders view phased exchange strategies as smart, disciplined financial management. With the CBI now fully prepared, holders should begin forming personal strategies so they are ready to act efficiently when the window opens. Readiness is a mindset as much as it is a system. Let's move deeper into global implications. When the CBI signals full readiness, international banking institutions start their own review processes. This includes validating exchange procedures, updating internal systems to reflect potential rate changes, and preparing staff for handling IQD-related transactions. The reason is simple: if Iraq executes a revaluation, international banks must be ready to support seamless global exchanges. Many investors outside Iraq hold dinar notes, which means demand for exchange services will not be confined to one region. This global demand underscores why readiness is such a major update. It signals that Iraq's banking system is aligning itself with global financial standards. At the same time, foreign banks begin strengthening their own safeguards to ensure compliance. These steps are crucial because currency exchanges, especially those involving large volumes, must meet strict international regulatory requirements. When foreign banks observe the CBI reaching readiness, they recognize that Iraq is positioning itself for higher value integration within the global financial landscape. This rising international attention is one of the strongest indirect indicators that momentum is building. Another major point holders must understand is why timing remains one of the most sensitive parts of the process. Full readiness does not automatically mean immediate activation. A revaluation event requires coordination between domestic institutions, international banks, political leadership, regulatory agencies, and sometimes even strategic partners. These pieces must align smoothly to avoid destabilizing financial markets. Liquidity availability must match projected demand. Political stability must support long-term valuation goals. Regulatory approvals must be completed in advance to ensure the banking system can legally process the new rate. These are not obstacles, they are normal components of responsible financial management. Full readiness simply means all internal systems are prepared and waiting. But the actual activation depends on timing that supports Iraq's broader economic strategies. This is why speculation about exact dates is discouraged across professional circles. Instead, the focus is on indicators. And today's indicator, full readiness, is one of the strongest we have ever seen. Let's talk about verification, because this is where many holders face challenges. When banks begin processing IQD exchanges, every note must be examined thoroughly. Authentication machines check the material ink, security features, watermarks, serial numbers, and series alignment. Notes that are torn, severely damaged, written on, or altered may be flagged for manual inspection or rejected entirely. This is why holders should take time to organize and inspect their notes now instead of waiting until the last minute. Write down total amounts, group notes by denomination, and keep everything stored securely. If you have receipts or documentation of where your dinar was purchased, keep that ready as well. Even though not all banks require proof of purchase, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Being proactive increases your confidence and positions you to move smoothly once exchanges begin. With readiness confirmed, the next major step is ensuring your personal documentation and note organization match the level of preparation seen at the institutional level. It's also valuable to understand what international demand means in the context of a potential revaluation. When global investors believe a currency may shift in value, demand increases, sometimes dramatically. This can influence forex markets, banking policies, and liquidity planning. Analysts monitor these patterns closely because rising international interest often indicates that major financial institutions are preparing for change. As of this year, 2025, the global conversation around the IQD has become more active than it has been in years. This renewed attention is directly linked to the recent confirmation that the CBI is fully ready. When a central bank completes such preparations, investors interpret it as strategic positioning. For Iraq, increased demand can support economic growth, enhance global partnerships, and elevate the country's financial credibility. For holders, this demand represents a positive signal that the world is watching closely. The more international attention increases, the stronger the indication that major developments may be near. Let's examine the importance of liquidity availability. When a revaluation occurs, banks must exchange old notes for new value at a rapid pace. Without sufficient liquidity, both cash and digital, banks cannot process large volumes of transactions smoothly. This is why the confirmation that liquidity reserves are ready is such an important milestone. It means the banking sector has prepared enough financial resources to support exchanges without causing instability. Liquidity is at the core of every successful currency event. It allows banks to function efficiently, prevents bottlenecks, and ensures qualified holders receive the value they are entitled to. Additionally, liquidity planning must match projected demand from international holders. This requires complex forecasting models, stress testing, and risk mitigation procedures. The fact that the CBI has confirmed readiness in this area means the hardest internal challenges have already been addressed. For dinar holders, liquidity readiness is one of the most significant markers of progress and signals that activation is now a matter of timing rather than capability. Another major topic worth breaking down is the role of global compliance systems in a revaluation process. When a currency's value changes, every bank connected to the global financial network must update its platform. This includes adjusting live exchange rates, modifying international settlement paths, and ensuring transaction reporting meets regulatory standards. Compliance is not optional, it is a requirement to prevent fraud, errors, or illegal transfers. The confirmation that Iraq's banking system is now fully synced with international compliance frameworks is a crucial step that many analysts underestimated. It shows that Iraq is not preparing for a small, symbolic adjustment. It is preparing for a major financial event that requires unrestricted integration with global mechanisms. Compliance readiness signals that the CBI has completed one of the final steps required before a major currency transition. For holders, this means the framework is now in place for secure, transparent, and regulated exchanges across international borders. Let's talk about why patience remains one of the most important qualities for currency holders right now. Even though readiness has been confirmed, and even though indicators are stronger than ever before, the final timing is dependent on strategic decisions that go beyond public view. Currency revaluations are not announced randomly or without synchronized planning. They are released only when conditions support long-term stability. This means that while everyone is eager to see the next major update, holders should avoid acting out of urgency or fear. Instead, use this time to continue preparing your documentation, reviewing your exchange strategy, and monitoring updates from credible voices. Patience does not mean inactivity. It means smart preparation while waiting for the right moment. The readiness confirmation should motivate holders, not rush them. When the announcement finally happens, those who remained disciplined and organized will be positioned to move smoothly and confidently. Now let's talk about why so many analysts believe this readiness milestone represents the closest we've come to the long-awaited revaluation. Over the years, Iraq has taken significant steps in rebuilding its financial system, strengthening its currency infrastructure, and improving its international relationships. But none of those steps individually signaled that a revaluation was imminent. They were foundational, not final. Today's update is different, because it marks the completion of those foundational steps. It marks the readiness stage, the point at which the central bank has finished its internal work and is now positioned for activation whenever leadership deems it appropriate. In many countries, this phase is the final checkpoint before major monetary adjustments are implemented. While timing remains unknown, readiness indicates that Iraq has reached a stage where operational obstacles no longer exist. For holders, this is the strongest signal in more than a decade that progress has moved into a new phase. It's important to highlight the role of organizational discipline in the final stage of preparation for holders. When the exchange window opens, those who are organized, calm, and well prepared will move faster and face fewer complications. This includes having your notes arranged by denomination, keeping digital and physical copies of identification ready, and knowing which banks in your area are likely to participate. Being disciplined also means avoiding unnecessary risks, such as sharing personal information with unverified parties or participating in speculative activities that promise unrealistic shortcuts. A major currency event attracts attention, and holders must remain cautious while preparing. With the CBI confirming readiness, many new voices will appear online offering predictions, claims, or advice. Staying grounded in logic and preparation ensures you remain safe and focused. Discipline is a financial strategy, not just a personal trait, and it will be essential during the transition period. Let's return to the phrase that has captured everyone's attention: full readiness. This phrase is not used lightly in the financial world. It typically appears only when an institution has completed all required preparations and is waiting for the final activation signal. It also implies that internal teams have completed testing, reviewed operational procedures, calibrated verification equipment, synchronized international banking lines, and validated liquidity reserves. When a central bank reaches this stage, only external timing factors remain. This is why the Dinar community is so energized by the latest update. It marks a turning point from years of reforms to a moment of operational readiness. It signals the closing of a long chapter of preparation and the beginning of a new chapter in which the next major decision could arrive without warning. For holders, understanding the weight of this phrase is essential because it does not appear often, and when it does, it usually precedes major developments. Now let's discuss what holders should focus on moving forward. In the coming weeks and months, the most important actions include monitoring official communication from banks, reviewing your personal exchange strategy, securing your notes, and staying informed about global economic developments that may influence timing. You don't need to predict a date, you simply need to remain prepared. With the CBI ready, the next major signals may appear quickly and without extended build-up. Being prepared today is far better than scrambling later. Remember that currency events of this magnitude require patience, readiness, and adaptability. The next phase will reward those who planned ahead. Continue staying informed, continue organizing your documentation, and continue positioning yourself mentally and financially for a smooth and efficient process when activation occurs. The goal is not to react, it is to be ready. As we close today's extended update, it is clear that the CBI's confirmation of full readiness marks a historic moment for both Iraq and the global Dinar community. For years, holders have waited for a sign that internal systems were finally aligned, strengthened, and prepared for a major currency shift. That moment has now arrived. While timing remains undisclosed, readiness changes everything. It signals that the infrastructure is complete, the systems are prepared, and the path forward is clearer than ever before. For holders, this is the time to stay alert, stay organized, and stay disciplined. The road ahead may hold one of the most significant financial transitions the region has seen in decades. Whether you are a small holder or a long-time investor, today's update represents a new level of momentum, unlike anything witnessed in previous years. Keep your notes secure, keep your documentation ready, and stay with this channel for continuous updates. The CBI is ready, and now, holders must be ready too. The next chapter in the IQD story may be closer than anyone expected.